but definitely check those out and download anything that may be of interest to you. Even though this is a virtual experience, we do want interaction, so please use the live discussion to submit questions and comments throughout the presentation today. Our speakers and FHCCI staff will be monitoring that, so definitely interact with us and get those questions answered. We will end just short of an hour today. That is so that you guys have time to fill out the evaluation. There's an evaluation for every single workshop, and I read every single evaluation that comes in for that feedback so that we can continue to improve this conference year after year. So please take the time to fill that out. It takes less than 60 seconds, very short questions, and we really appreciate your feedback. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm super excited to turn the floor over to the amazing experts from the Kheprw Institute. We have a whole team of them here with us today, and they're going to introduce themselves and talk to you about this very important topic of community land trust. Teacher, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Erica. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Deidre Coleman with the Kheprw Institute. I am the Community Engagement Liaison, and I've got my amazing colleagues here with me, and
we're going to try to keep this fun.
Yeah, we're going to try to keep it fun. And so we always start our meetings with a check-in where we say our color, number, and the question today is, what are you reading, or what is your favorite book?
And what does this color number mean?
Okay, and so the color number is about if you were a color or you were a number, what does that mean for you today? So it's a wellness check. It's a way to kind of check in to let us know how you feeling, how you doing. Make sense?
Yeah, sounds good. And if you want to, you can use the 1 to 10 scale if you like.
Yes, absolutely. And to take advantage of the time, we'd like you to put your number and color and your answer in the chat. Okay, thanks so much. But I'm gonna start us off. I'm a 9.7 today, and the color I'm feeling is fuchsia. A beautiful fuchsia color. And my favorite book is, one of my favorite books is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I'm going to pass it to you, Alvin.
You want to share a little bit about yourself, who you are?
Sure. Oh my God. Okay, so again, I'm Deidre, and I came out of the public health space, been in community for 30 plus years. I've been working with Kheprw 20 plus years and love Kheprw. I'm a Kheprw lifer, and I work in community engagement. I'm an artist, so I do a lot of artistic, creative things in the field, in the space as well. And my son is a recipient of Kheprw wisdom, knowledge, and the intergenerational leadership and model that flows through the work of Kheprw.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
That's Alvin.
Okay, I'm going to feel, with that, I'm feeling like a yellow 10. My favorite and most influential book, I'm going to say right now, Born in Blackness by Howard French. And there'll be more about that in the presentation later. And just a skinny version for me. So I'm from Indianapolis, grew up on the northeast side, went to school out east of Los Angeles, and then studied abroad in Thailand, which is where my dad's originally from. So, and it was a program focused on development, globalization, and human rights. And that really put me on the path to doing community work. So I've been a part of Kheprw for about 13 years now. So after I graduated, went back to Thailand for a year working with the same program, and then came back home to find home and community and really find where is my place to make a difference in the world. And did AmeriCorps for a year, and through that met a lot of folks, and ended up coming to an event at Kheprw that was about food and racism, and was the weird kid who never leaves, and they didn't kick me out, so I'm still here. So it's been a life-changing experience. So I started by volunteering and helping with the social media, marketing, newsletter, technology, web design and development, and then really over the last four years in our work around starting a community land trust, which we'll get into more later. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Stephanie.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie Giardo. I'd say today I'm a 9 sky blue, really grateful for sunshine, and hope we have that for many days to come. Let's see, the question about the book. I would say, especially related to this topic, Evicted was really foundational for me to understand how people are benefiting off of the backs of those whose income are different, and how wrong that is, and just really helping to understand all those forces at work. It got me also really passionate about wanting to do something about it, and hoping that things could be done differently. So skinny version of me, as I grew up here in Indy, did various direct care roles in social work and burnt out. Surprise, surprise, if any of you are social workers, you understand that. Decided to take a less stressful job, I say tongue in cheek, with event planning, but decided if I was going to be that stressed, I wanted it to have a different purpose behind it. Did some grief support at Indiana Donor Network, which was really amazing, and started my master's of social work. Wrapped up in 2022 with the track related to community and leadership development, more on how the community is operating and kind of nonprofit organizational leadership. But kind of back to that evicted foundation, like the systems that are at play and that really impact us, and how can we start to pivot some of these things. So got involved with Kheprw about a year and a half ago-ish, coming up now, crazy, as they were starting to launch the Community Land Trust, and said, hey, I'd love to be a part of this. I think this could be great in our community. And they said, sure, come on board, let's do it. So glad to be here with you all today, and I'll turn it over to Nicholas.
Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday to everyone. My name is Nicholas Johnson, and my quick check-in, I'm gonna go 9.75, and my color today is gonna be antique white. And I read so many different books. I was just going through my library. I'm adding another shelf, so I don't know if I have one particular favorite because I have so many that I love, but right now I'm actually teaching my girls a little bit of French, so having fun with that, and my wife's teaching them Spanish, so we've been, doing language books pretty frequently. But yeah, that's my check-in. Just a little bit about myself. I've been working in community and economic development for probably about 25 years. And that's encompassed working at state government, federal government, city government, which would be Texas, Louisiana, of course, Indiana. Right. I've worked in the nonprofit space as well, and primarily in lending and legal, corporate and commercial transactions. And my role right now with Kheprw is that I'm the fund manager for the Kheprw Integrated Fund, which is our charitable loan fund. And I'm also a member of our Community Land Trust team, which all four of us are here. So participating in a lot of the policy, a little bit of the policy work, but primarily the legal work and on some of the transactional activities. So super excited to be here today.
Okay, so I just want to go over our agenda. Thank you, team. We're going to go into the Kheprw story. I'm going to show a short video, the history of CLTs and CLT 101, and the Indy CLT. So we're going to dive right in with the Kheprw story.
Community means something different round here. Love's breeding ground born new, blossoming into barraging stories of blackness, banter, and bustle through blues like blood couldn't make us any closer. This be communion.
Growing community is like growing food. It's a lot of work. You got to till the soil. You got to plant the seeds. You got to have the right weather conditions. So community is just like that. You start with what you have where you are.
Kheprw is a nonprofit grassroots organization that was created roughly about 20 years ago. And when it was created by my father, my mother, and my godmother. They're the three co-founders. And they created it to help me, Miss Paulette's grandson, my lifelong, he's like a brother, Ijaz. Some of my partners I grew up with, Drum and Jerome, in my neighborhood. It's basically like, how do we create a formal experience for these young black men to grow, thrive?
The birth of Kheprw is about, again, inherently, the crux of Kheprw is tied to liberation and freedom. Freedom to me is having a goal or goals, aspirations, dreams, visions, and missions, and being able to have the opportunity to fulfill those goals, aspirations, visions, and missions.
Empowerment means to me like you get something right. You do what you want to do. You figure out what's your goal and you set your goal.
Running to get it like I'm in the Olympics, but there is no finish. We gotta keep going, so I set the pace. Handle with grace, the person I need to be leading the race. Ballin' like I never balled before. Flexing forever like 24. Taking the keys, open all the doors. Linings to cover up all the sores. Give it your best and the world adores. This is for certain, I'm so for sure.
We live in a culture, when you think of wealth, you think of money. How much money you got? What's your credit rating? Do you have any intergenerational wealth? Do you own a home ownership, blah, 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 blah. If you're not careful when you think community wealth, then the folks start thinking, oh, you're talking about how rich your community is, how much fiscal assets does it have. But wealth itself really is much broader than that. It's your intellectual wealth. What kind of information do you know? Others in your community, what do they know? Breadth and depth of your relationship with others in your community. Spiritual wealth, faith, your heart, music, art, those things all make up wealth in your community.
Okay, so we're gonna keep moving. Any questions you may have in the chat, please put them in the chat, because we definitely want to make this interactive. But we're gonna also honor your time. And you can scan this QR code here to connect with Kheprw, and you could win a copy of Sweep of Stars. We're giving away 10 copies. So please include your mailing address. And this is written by one of our own that we're very proud of, Mr. Maurice Broadus, and he runs Cafe Creative. He's a great author.
And this book is what he says is if Kheprw was an empire in space.
Yes. So scan the QR code and we can get right back to you. So we're going to keep moving. And what is community wealth? Community wealth building is an economic system that starts at the local level. It is a systemic approach that recognizes communities have assets that can be harnessed to create and sustain local, vibrant, equitable economies. Excuse me, I'm sorry, of shared prosperity. So starting a community land trust came out of this approach to our work. So we have a video that was created by one of our young people that's on our team.
Shane Shepherd, shout out Shane Shepherd Media.
Shout out to Shane on the Indy Community Land Trust. So we're going to share that. It's a very short video.
What is a community land trust? Community land trusts are nonprofit community-based organizations tasked with holding land permanently in trust for the benefit of the people in the community. CLT land can be used for many types of development, including commercial and agricultural uses, but CLTs are primarily used to ensure long-term housing affordability. CLTs are governed by a board of directors made up of housing residents, community representatives, and members of the general public. To hear more about the Community Land Trust, stay tuned to hear some of our Kheprw leaders speak about the Community Land Trust and the benefits thereof.
What community means to me is the environment you create for yourself through your relationships that allow you to be. It's the shallow lake out by your house that you can let your kids go jump in and play in. Community is that space where you know that you're not by yourself. The most wonderful thing about Community Land Trust is you are a community. In a Community Land Trust, you own the house. The land is held in collective. Everyone puts in a little for their own home, which builds, and you're able to not only help fund what you need, but what others need.
One of the things that make me a real big advocate for CLTs is I remember being a 20-year-old with my first daughter born and getting our first apartment and, 500 square feet and paying rent and not really seeing a future in terms of how that was going to benefit me long term. What the CLT offers is not only do you get affordability because the CLT looks at your individual household income. When you get an apartment or you get a house that you want to rent, basically as long as you can afford to make the rental payment, the landlord really doesn't have too many issues. But with the CLT, they're looking much deeper into your financial profile. For example, they not only want you to be able to afford the monthly payment, but they want you to be able to include your utilities, your taxes, your principal, your interest, your insurance, and into a percentage of your total income that really makes it more affordable for you so that you can have discretionary income to also do something that's just as important. It's one of the ways that the CLT really separates itself because you're trying to make sure that people are living in somewhere safe and secure, but it's affordable, but it's also opening up and making sure that people aren't house poor, either from buying a home or from renting a home, where basically we define house poor as anyone who's paying more than 30% of their income just for basic living necessities, which is primarily rent or mortgage.
So you have a partner in the homeowner process. It's not just like me on my own, that's it. I have somebody that cares about my family dynamics, what it is we need, and able to provide an alternative to just market rate. And dealing with the banks, you deal with lenders that care about the community, care about the social capital and human capital of a family, of a person, opposed to me going at it on my own. I like that model that you have support from community, you have the support of people that are invested in your home ownership, being a success.
Well, for me and anybody else who owns a house, building wealth is different from policies that allow real estate people to come in and buy up houses for little and then rent them for much. That's a policy issue. And so you feel like if you do vote, things don't change. Well, if you don't vote, they really don't change in your favor. As anyone knows who owns a house, not be able to pay the taxes, you're done for. The state comes and gets your house. And so the idea of home ownership then becomes a collection of people who own the land together, but the house belongs to you. I'm not in it by myself. I'm not going down by myself. I have community to make sure that I'm good so that the community can be strong and we all can be good.
As the Community Land Trust movement gains momentum in Indianapolis, it is the perfect time to explore opportunities for involvement. For detailed information on how you can contribute to a community land trust, visit indyclt.org. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so we're going to do a brief history of CLTs. Community land trusts draw from ancient principles that date back centuries. Indigenous people believed land was a communal resource given by God, not property to be bought and sold. The origins of today's CLTs can be traced to various global movements, including the Garden Cities of England, the Grand Dam movement of India, and the Moshav communities of Israel. And in June of 1968, 8 people from the United States traveled to Israel for the purpose of studying agricultural cooperatives on leased land. Their hope was that they could start something similar in the rural South to help African American sharecroppers, tenants, and farmers who were being forced off the land because of their participation in the Southern civil rights struggle. One of these people was Charles Sherrod, who you'll see in the Charles Sherrod, and he was the original person who started New Communities, Inc. And New Communities, Inc. is the prototype for the modern day Community Land Trust, and it was established in Albany, Georgia in 1969 for the purpose of, again, combating discrimination in land rights and lending. The community ownership provided members some security that they could stay there regardless of how they voted, if they voted or what color their skin was. At the end of the planning phase, the governor vetoed a grant which started a 15-year battle to hold on to the land. This battle was lost in 1985 after a series of disasters, both natural droughts and man-made, like shots fired in offices, denial of loans, and diluted fertilizer. The property was foreclosed, and those in the CLT were forced off the land. The new owners wanted to get rid of the land and anything that would remind them of the previous owners, so they dug holes and pushed all their buildings into them. New Communities, Inc. became part of a class action lawsuit and eventually won and received a settlement. New Communities used the proceeds to purchase 1,638 acres, which is called the Cypress Pond Plantation property. The Cypress Pond Plantation property was once the property of the largest slave owner in Georgia, ironically. After the purchase of Cypress Pond Plantation in 2011, New Communities set out to create a unique headquarters to serve as a catalyst for growth in individuals, healing in the community, and transformation across the globe. This new property has been renamed Resora. Okay, so looking at CLT expansion, following the founding of New Communities, Inc., CLTs began to spring up in other states and spread quickly into cities in the 80s. The model has been adopted in many countries, including Canada, Kenya, Australia, the UK, and Puerto Rico, always tailored to meet local needs. When you look at this map, these are CLTs that are occupied and are operating right now in Indiana. So in South Bend, the South Bend Heritage Foundation closed on their first CLT home in December of 2023 and has other properties in process right now. The Hamilton County CLT should launch this year, and the Indianapolis CLT hopes to open applications right this summer. And in Bloomington, Indiana, there are 2 different CLTs, the Summit Hill CLT and Avalon CLT. Finally, in Evansville, Indiana, they have 9 homes with their first right of refusal and are working on their CLT bylaws. So there's some positive movement happening in Indiana. So now I'm going to
good work, Dee.
segue to my colleague Stephanie, CLT 101. Take it away, Stephanie.
Thank you, Dee. So now we'll get into the nitty-gritty a little bit. How does this work? What does this really look like? The Classic Community Land Trust is an independent nonprofit organization that serves a defined geographic area. Membership is open to anyone within that defined service area. This is one of the elements that makes the classic community land trust unique. Instead of just serving the direct beneficiaries, those living or working on land trust land, the community land trust is accountable to their entire membership in the entire community. CLTs have a tripartite board, so the board is divided into 3 equal groups of representatives. The first third is made up of leaseholders, people living on or using CLT land. The second third is made up of community members. And the third group is made up of technical experts, funders, or other stakeholders in the organization. Because 2/3 of the board is made up of community members, they hold the majority of the votes. This is why we say that the Community Land Trust are community-controlled organizations. CLTs use a dual ownership model in order to secure the property for the common good and to ensure its ongoing affordability. In a dual ownership structure, the individual, most frequently an under-resourced homebuyer, purchases and owns just the improvements, or the house. The Community Land Trust retains ownership of the land underneath the home. A 99-year ground lease ties the improvements and the land together. The ground lease does a few critical things. First, it outlines the rights and responsibilities of the homeowner and the rights and responsibilities of the Community Land Trust. Second, it establishes use restrictions, like requiring that the homeowner lives on the property as their primary residence. Third, it establishes affordability restrictions. Fun fact, and a question that we get often, yes, CLT homes can be passed down to future generations. The land remains the property of the CLT, and the new owner or heir could take on the original ground lease. Perpetual affordability restrictions are what makes CLTs unique from other forms of affordable housing development. CLTs ensure that the homes that they develop are affordable not only for that first occupant or homeowner, but to future generations as well. They do this by removing the land and home from the speculative market, reselling the same home over and over, and using resale restrictions. CLTs use public subsidies to lower the initial price of a home to a level that's affordable to their target home buyer. They can do this in a few different ways. They can subsidize the cost of acquisition or construction, or they could use that subsidy to help a home buyer purchase an existing home. But no matter how they do it, by bringing the home into the Community Land Trust, they remove it from the market. Remember, CLTs don't sell the land that they acquire, and they resell that same home over and over again. When an eligible home buyer purchases a CLT home, they sign the ground lease that upfront outlines how the resale will work, including their maximum sale price and the eligibility factors for the new buyers. When that subsequent buyer purchases the home, they sign a new 99-year ground lease and agree to sell at a resale restricted price. And this happens again and again and again. The resale formula price equals the home initial sales price after factoring in the affordability grant, plus a fixed increase of 2% of the initial price per year. The benefits of this include a predictable wealth building opportunity, a transparent resale formula, and perpetual affordability in markets that may change. Where else can you go that you could say 5 years from now, I know exactly what I could bring home for selling my house. So there are definitely some benefits to that. The way that permanently affordable homeownership programs make the homes initially affordable is by closing the affordability gap. Let's say that the average market price of a home is $200,000, but the family that we're working with can only afford to purchase a house for $155,000. There's a $45,000 gap between what the family can afford and what the home cost. That's our affordability gap. And unfortunately, in many communities, including Indianapolis, where market values increase at a rate faster than our incomes do, this affordability gap just gets bigger. And again, we don't expect our pots of subsidy to grow with this need. Our goal is to be forward thinking and to address those future needs in part by ensuring that the homes that we create remain affordable for under-resourced home buyers in perpetuity. Now I'm going to take you through a couple of scenarios to help you understand how the CLT is different than other programs. Let's start with a more traditional model of affordable homeownership, something that you may have heard of like a down payment assistance grant. In this fictional case, the city offers under-resourced homebuyers a grant to help them purchase a home on the market. The city doesn't expect any kind of repayment on the grant. In this example, the market price of the home is $200,000, but the homeowner can only afford to purchase a $155,000 home. So there's that $45,000 gap between what they can afford and the market value of the home. The city gives that home buyer a $45,000 grant to fill that gap, and the home buyer purchases the home. 10 years later, they're ready to sell. Their home has gone up in value to $275,000, so that's their sales price. Since the program that made the home affordable in the first place was grant-based, no money comes back to the city, it stays with the seller. The homeowner walks away with $75,000 in appreciation, plus the $45,000 grant money. That's on top of their own equity, like any down payment they have brought, and also the principal that they pay down on their mortgage. Well, this is amazing for that one homeowner. It doesn't take much of a dent out in the need for affordable housing and can even contribute to gentrification. The need for affordable homeownership opportunities hasn't gone away. There's still more families to serve, so 10 years later, this program needs to help a new family purchase a new home on the market. In this example, market values have risen to $275,000. But as we know, increases in incomes don't keep up with increases in home values. In our example, our new homeowner can afford a $185,000 home. Now there's a bigger gap, now $90,000, that needs to be filled to help a similar family purchase a similar home. If this was our only way of creating affordable homeownership opportunities, we would consistently require more money, making it harder to really address our community's needs for affordable housing. The CLT model is done differently. The subsidy stays with the property instead of with the homeowner. Let me explain. In this example, we have the same home buyer, and the same $45,000 gap. But instead of providing a grant to the home buyer, the city is going to invest a $45,000 subsidy that will stay with the home. So our home buyer purchases the home from the Community Land Trust for the below market price of $155,000. 10 years later, our home has still increased in value, but CLT homeowners do not sell for the market value of the home. They sell for an agreed upon resale restricted price, in this case, $185,000. In this example, I'm using the resale formula we discussed a few slides ago, which increases the original purchase price 2% every year. The program portion actually grows. It's $90,000, the difference between the market value and the new sales price, and it stays in the home to assist the next buyer. The seller walks away with $30,000 plus any equity, like their original down payment and what they pay down on their mortgage. The key difference in the CLT model is that the initial subsidy stays with the home to keep it affordable for future home buyers. So instead of needing to help the next buyer purchase a $240,000 home on the market with an even bigger affordability gap, the CLT helps them purchase the resale restricted CLT home for $185,000. The CLT doesn't need to invest any more money to help home buyers purchasing a home that was already a part of the CLT. That is how CLTs maximize the public investments, putting them to work for generation of under-resourced home buyers. Now, I realize that the real world is not as simple as this example, but hopefully you're seeing the difference between the two models and what could be possible. CLTs also know that promising to make a home permanently affordable does not result in the home actually being permanently affordable. That requires oversight and support, which falls under the broad category of stewardship. CLTs do three kinds of stewardship at once. They steward the structure or the home. If the home is to stay affordable and help future families, it needs to remain in good condition. So CLTs do things like require that the home has enough insurance and approve significant changes to the home. They can also educate homeowners about preventative maintenance, encourage improvements to the home, and help homeowners through renovations to prevent contractor fraud. CLTs also steward the homeowners. While homeowners can't sell for the full market value of their home, CLTs try to design resale formulas that balance that ongoing affordability with wealth creation. And we know that for homeowners to be able to create wealth, they can't just become homeowners, they need to stay in the homes. So CLTs do things like require homebuyer counseling before purchase. They also review all mortgage and refinance documents to prevent predatory lending. In some cases, CLTs also offer post-purchase counseling and foreclosure prevention counseling to help homeowners who may want or need it. Finally, CLTs also steward the public funds used to make the home affordable in the first place. Every CLT makes a promise that this money will serve generation after generation of homeowners. The key to that success is resale restrictions, which keeps the homes affordable. To make good on their promise, CLTs oversee every element of resale, including calculating the formula price and making sure the next home buyer is income certified. Historically, there were many homes available for first-time home buyers, but this is no longer the case, and households with lower incomes are being forced to continue paying increasing rents and oftentimes substandard housing. The Community Land Trust adds another possible step, bridging that gap to traditional homeownership for those currently priced out. A report from the National League of Cities and the Grounded Solution Networks found that CLT homeowners accumulate approximately $14,000 in equity when they sell their home, and almost 60% go on to purchase a market rate home after selling. So it really is bridging that gap for those that may want it. So there are some trade-offs, like everything, right? Yeah. Having to qualify for a mortgage will automatically lock out some home buyers, particularly impacting people of color and also people who may not have documentation. And it doesn't allow for as much wealth building as traditional homeownership. But the reality is this isn't really created for those who could buy in the traditional market. This is offering a new opportunity for those who would otherwise be locked in. Potential renters who cannot afford to purchase a home can use the CLT to become a homeowner. The CLT will provide up to $100,000 in subsidy to purchase a home. These options provide opportunities for folks to acquire equity to eventually purchase their own home on the regular market if they choose, not necessarily in the CLT. So there are some benefits for both the homeowner and the community. For the homeowner, they get a below market rate purchase price with a safe loan with fixed rate financing. They have stable housing cost and security from eviction. And finally, they get support with our staff and the homeowner community that we're working hard to create. On the community side, it provides home ownership options for those who traditionally haven't been able to do this and have been left out. It conserves the land and protects the condition of affordable housing. The resale restrictions protect the investment and keep the home affordable for future generations. And finally, this benefits the community by combating gentrification and cultural displacement. And now I'm going to turn it over to Alvin.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Indianapolis CLT and a little bit of our dance, how we got into this dance and some of the lessons we've learned along the way. There have been lots of lessons. So this really started, again, like Deidre shared earlier, all of our work is centered on community leadership development and the building community wealth. So a lot of projects, whether it's our community gardens, our entrepreneurial initiatives, they all come out of neighbors and community coming to us, or young people with passions and ideas for how we can make our community better and create the kind of communities that we want to live in. So really back in 2018, two of our friends in community, Andy Beck and Wildstyle, came to Kheprw saying, hey, there's this organization called Right to the City, and we should start a local chapter to focus on tenant organizing and community control of land and housing, which is the two areas that Right to the City focuses on. Right to the City is a national organization currently, and it's an alliance of about 80 members around the country, including Kheprw Institute now. So really back then, we were like, hey, that sounds like it's, after lots of discussion, that it was in alignment with our values and what we wanted to do. And I would say that's really when the Homes for All Indy coalition started, really with a couple of folks from around the city, advocates, as well as organizations interested in affordable housing and housing justice, getting together just to talk about it and figure out how to learn together and grow and build together. So that's what started us on the journey. And I've been involved in the project for about 4 years now. And I would say, like, a big lesson from that has been, like, I came in, hey, we're going to fix this. How do we fix housing using a community land trust? And I quickly, like, thanks to like friends like Emotep and others who are like, hey, you got to look dig deeper and look really critically on why this isn't going to work and what's wrong here. And I think the biggest lesson was that the housing crisis is not an accident, and it's cannot be fixed by just producing more housing. By producing more housing, we could potentially reduce the prices, but fundamentally it doesn't change how the system works, which is really a system, and I think Stephanie alluded to it earlier, a system that's based off of exploitation and moving wealth and value from communities that don't have capital, don't have property, who are forced into renting, to those who do have property, like the landlords. But even another step that I think evicted was a big influence in my understanding, the landlords also get wealth extracted from them to the banks and investors. So again, it's a system that was started long before any of us were born, that we were all born into, that was really based off of, and I'll say also, to bring in the other book I mentioned, Born in Blackness, really looks at the role of Africa and Africans in the creation of the modern world, really focusing on trade with Africa and then trade with Africa and enslaved Africans, and how exploitation through the institution of slavery was really the basis for the modern economy, through the creation of commodities like sugar, which literally sacrificed people's lives to create profits. And this same model, this plantation economic system, even after the end of the institution of slavery, the ownership of property and capital has been the primary tool for enforcing class differences, for enforcing this racial caste system, where those who don't have capital, so they're forced to pay rent to a landlord. And in order to pay rent, they also are forced to take low-wage jobs that don't necessarily respect their humanity. So again, like, to face the brutal facts that it's not just a housing issue, it really fundamentally is a social, political, and economic issue that housing is a part of. And again, that challenge to us is, okay, regardless, facing the brutal facts, how do we leverage resources for our communities? Because there's always been folks who've resisted and who have built together and cooperated to share resources. And I think, and I'm just going to go to the next slide, this is a bonus reading that's in the conference materials, which I highly recommend. And it looks at the practical and political limitations and potentials of community land trust. It's just 4 pages. And I just want to read a quote from that. The first CLT was created in Albany, Georgia by organizers from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and was born of efforts to enable Black farmers to have more control over their land. Black power organizers in Albany, who were motivated by the goals of community control, social change, borrowed from different land reform movements to create the first CLT. They did so not as a tool for affordable housing, but rather, as the CLT's founders put it, so that a legitimate alternative institutional expression of land ownership may be found, thereby contributing to the much needed social and economic reconstruction of America. This article also really looks at, and it's not to downplay the important practical values that it has, which Stephanie went over, which is about keeping homes and stewarding funds and keeping them in community. But the other part of community land trust really is the first word, which is community. Without community, it's just really a land bank of sorts. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Indianapolis's community land trust and our hopes and work in organizing this. So the first component and the most important is the membership. The membership of the community land trust are the community owners of the CLT. So these folks are the folks who are nominated to and elect the board of directors. There are going to be 3 types of members that we're starting with: resident members who live in the CLT, general members, and then supporting members. I won't go into details. If you want to learn more, please contact us. We'll have our contact at the end. And it also lays out responsibilities of the members. And what we're thinking now is really having folks who are supporters of the Community Land Trust pledge to contact the CLT if they're selling property. If they have a home that they are interested in selling, before putting it on the market, contact the Community Land Trust to see if there's some way. And there are several community land trusts that do something similar, where people either donate property or sell at a discount. So what City of Lakes and Minneapolis does, if people are willing to sell at a discount of 20% off the market value, then we can work to help put a CLT homeowner in that house. Also, and again, not just individual members, but also organizational members can support the CLT. Members also donate and or volunteer, which could include coming to membership meetings where we build community and relationships. So the idea is we want this to not just be a service or a project or that provides affordable housing, but a community of folks who work together to help make it happen. Because if the members don't come together and support it and really make it also a political powerful force that can leverage resources and also change policies, then again, it'll just be a marginal effort that's really on the sidelines. So how do we build a movement of folks who want to have a different relationship to each other and to the land that we live on? And you can become a member soon, so that's coming soon. Okay, another important thing that we've learned and decided upon is the targeted residents. So right now we're targeting for CLT residents to be under 60% of the area median income, which is a technical term for people's incomes. So this is a chart that shows it's based off household size. So for a 60% AMI, that would be anyone making under 40,000, single household, $40,620. For a 3-person household, 52,000 and some dollars. So that's, and the reason, and this, Stephanie covered it a little bit, and actually I'll talk about the disproportionate impact. So this really comes from the 2022 Fair Housing Center of Central Indiana's report that said half of renters in Marion County earn $35,000 or less annually, but only an estimated 35% of the county's multifamily rental housing units are affordable to them. This disproportionately affects households of color. While households of color represent 36% of all households, roughly half of households earning less than $35,000 in income are Black and 13% are Hispanic. And again, that is to highlight that what we are hoping to do with the Community Land Trust is to provide homeownership, a community homeownership opportunity and community ownership opportunity for folks who would be stuck renting. And that money that they're paying to rent is going out the window to landlords. Not all of them are bad, but it's not building equity for them and equity for our community. Another important component that we're starting with a home buyer choice pilot program. So this, Stephanie alluded to it earlier in the examples, but providing up to $100,000 in subsidy to CLT buyers to purchase a turnkey home, meaning no fixer-uppers, no major maintenance or issues with the home, for sale that's on the market anywhere. So it could be across the street from you. It could be any in the neighborhood and the home that people actually want to live in. And for example, if there was a $180,000 home, could be bought by a CLT home buyer who can afford a mortgage of $80,000. The future sale price would be limited to 2% appreciation of the home buyer's purchase price. So in this example, the $80,000 plus credits for capital improvements. So there's a policy for capital improvements. If they add an extra bedroom or if they do major upgrades, we want to also incentivize people to maintain and improve their homes. And it's very similar. We learned a whole lot from talking to Dr. Ashley Allen in Houston. She's the director of the Houston Community Land Trust, as well as folks at City of Lakes Community Land Trust that have a similar program. And they say by far it's the most popular because people have agency and they get to choose. All right, we also have our screening form and opening soon. If you want to, you can take your phone out and go to the camera and scan this QR code, and it's going to go to our Get Involved form so that we can let you know as things are happening. We will keep you up to date with our monthly newsletter and let you know as things come out. Again, funding is limited for 2024, so thanks to support from the City of Indianapolis, which has provided operating support, and the Indianapolis African American Quality of Life Initiative, we have funding for about 4 or 5 households to do this first pilot round. And we anticipate opening applications starting in the summer of 2024. Also, and this is the same QR code, so it goes the same place. If you'd like to get involved, request a community presentation for your neighborhood or church or wherever you think people should know about this. Become a member, coming soon. Explore an organizational partnership, give financially, or donate or potentially sell a property to the CLT. We'd also love to continue the conversation at our Homes for All Indy calls, which we do on the second Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. on Zoom. And this is a different QR code, and it goes to the sign up form if you want to get added to our Homes for All Indy newsletter list. So I'll leave that up for just a second. Do you want to stand up? And here's the QR code again if you want to win a book. So again, if you want to win a book, a copy of Sweep of Stars by Maurice Broaddus. I wanted to make sure you don't pass that up. And then we will also, you can reach us by email at clt@kheprw.org. And I just want to also emphasize that we by no means believe community land trusts are the solution. They are just a tool that we hope in our community, and again, it looks very different in every city and every place that it's implemented. If it truly is a community land trust, it is shaped to fit the needs and the local conditions and opportunities. So again, we're not trying to sell it and convince people to buy a home in the community land trust. People can buy on the regular market. We say more power to them, but we're hoping again to build community relationships and have some kind of alternative system to what exists now. And that is it. So we'll go to questions. And please, again, put your questions in the chat. We're here and we are responding to your questions in the chat.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody, Alvin, Nicholas, Stephanie, for presenting this. It's always something that I've been interested in, and I literally took over a page of notes here because I still have a lot to learn. But I love that it's based in community, and I love that you guys went kind of through the history of, lending discrimination did keep people of color out of homeownership, and it seems like this was a tool that communities used to work around that, originally. And so I'm glad to see they're still here, and I'm glad to see we have quite a few coming up in Indiana. So that's super exciting. You guys are looking at a really exciting summer, it seems like. We don't have too much time for questions, so hopefully we'll get some in the chat throughout the presentation that we can answer. But I was just curious, since you guys are kind of just getting, a couple of years now under your belt, but you're getting up on your first property here, what have been some of the major barriers to maybe expanding the program, doing more houses, those sorts of things, to kind of expand the opportunity throughout Indianapolis into more lower income families?
I think a big barrier that I see, and Alvin and Nicholas may add some, would just be the funding. For the initial subsidy is large per home, but then it's a one-time, kind of per home that keeps giving and giving. But we're looking at around $100,000 per subsidy. And with the funding we have now, being able to help a handful of families. So for us to really help more families, it will require more initial investment.
And where is that funding coming from? Just curious.
Sure, we've got some initial funding from the Urban League's African American Quality of Life, and some support from the city as well to help us get off the ground.
Has there been, and where the bigger or maybe longer standing community land trusts are in different cities across the US, have they gotten a certain kind of support from local officials or governments that kind of keep that program going and building? Is there something like that we can look at implementing here?
So I can give an example of that, and that really comes out of Minneapolis and our friends at City of the Lakes Community Land Trust. So again, they got started, and I would definitely recommend checking out that article, the limitations and potentials of community land trust, because there are some limitations. Again, I think there's about maybe 14,000 units around the whole country, which again is a drop in the bucket when it comes to the housing crisis and what's needed. Mm-hmm. And some of that, again, is what Stephanie said, the funding. And also just doing things differently, and particularly small C conservative. Hey, we've always done it this way. So just being able to be flexible and adaptive to figuring out doing something different. So in the city of Minneapolis, again, over years, City of Lakes Community Land Trust started in about 2002, 2003. And then just recently, in I think like a year or two ago, the city has changed all of their affordable housing funding to require that it remain long-term affordable. So either through the City of Lakes Community Land Trust or a city program that the City of Lakes Community Land Trust is administering to make sure, again, as the crisis has gotten really worse, I think there has been a lot more popularity and interest in community land trusts through that lens of making those subsidies go longer. And I think another example is how low-income housing tax credit projects are only affordable for 15, now 30 years in Indiana, like that those big investments, again, like they go away after the time period's over. And again, there may be opportunities there for folks to collaborate with community land trusts to keep things permanently affordable. Nicholas, add anything briefly?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, Alan, you hit the nail right on the head. Stephanie made some great comments as well about the importance of making sure that the subsidy stays in the property, right? And just continues to keep giving on, year after year, owner after owner. And Alvin, as you noted, like with the tax credits, it has a period of affordability and then it falls off once the tax credits the investors for the tax credits reap the benefits of that, and then it goes back to being primarily market rate housing. I think one of the things that we're looking to try to do as well here is that we try to have a diversified strategy in terms of how we raise capital. So we're looking at not only having our looking at units of government, all three levels, but we're also looking at philanthropic, and then we're also looking at private sector in terms of in the capital markets with private investors. So rather than them going direct, through another intermediary, allowing them opportunities to come directly to the CLT and be investors in the CLT as well. But it's not so much about investing so that you can get 100-fold or 1,000-fold return. We're talking about, what I would call either below market or just at least a reasonable return, something in that 3 to 5% range. So it does take a little bit more of a different approach, find a particular investor who wants to, support community and things of that nature.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. I think we're out of time, so I can't ask any of my other questions, but we look forward to seeing this progress here in Indy and around the state of Indiana, and we'll be following you guys. Thanks for the shout out for our report. I'll make sure that is in the resources page on the swap card in case anybody of the attendees want to read that. For the attendees here today, please fill out that evaluation for us. It'll only take a few seconds. We are now on a half-hour break, so go grab something to eat and join us for the plenary session here at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thank you guys so much. Again, thank you so much, Kheprw, for your time and the work that you're doing here in Indiana. We really appreciate you. And with that, I will let you guys go get some lunch. Thanks.
Back at ya.
Thank you all.
How's it going? All right. Thanks for staying on and listening.
Sorry, I was here starting a meeting on another channel. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you're
Good job,
good.
good work.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Great work.
Appreciate you. Yep. You all have a good one. I'll talk to you.
We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.